one of the workshop we did this weekend was full body tantric energy orgasm. So it's a bit like orgasmic Reiki. It just like ignites. He can make you orgasm from not touching you, basically.
Oh, the energy orgasms.
Yeah.
Have you experienced the energy orgasms before?
This weekend.
What?
Yeah.
What is that like?
It's like someone's doing witchcraft on you. It's like, like if someone's touching your arm and you can, like, if you touch that spot like enough, then it will become orgasmic. It's a bit like that. It's like after some time, your body starts to feel the polarity in that person's energy field, and then you can connect to that feeling.
How long do I go for? I think I'd start to get a rash first before I started to feel any orgasms in my arm. I've done sort of this one little workshop. It was about a year ago, and I just experienced it because it was through breath. So we started to do some breathing as well as feeling various parts of her body, but just with our minds. And I actually noticed myself starting to get really, really aroused. I actually started to feel like I could probably orgasm, but I didn't have a hard on or anything, but I felt a lot of pleasure.
Full body tantric energy orgasm. My yoni was not at all like engorged.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to talk to him. Can you put me in touch with him?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I guess we'll just jump right into it. So, yeah, why don't you give like a 60-second or 2-minute little description of who you are and what it is that you do, because your life is completely changed from when I knew you 5 years ago. I mean, this is so awesome.
Oh my God, this is insane. Okay, maybe I can talk a little bit about. Sorry, my pug is jumping up at me.
Let's meet your pug. Let's meet your pug.
Yeah, if I put him on camera. Come here, Bobby. Oh, come up. Yeah. Okay, this is Maurice.
Oh my God, it's so adorable.
He's pretty adorable. He's got a little bow tie on. So, my 2 minutes is I met you 5 years ago working as a milkman and been doing the whole sales thing, and then I now use my sales techniques in a little bit of a different way and work with people on a more personal level and talk to people about connecting more to their sexual energy so they can receive more abundance in their life. I do this with like a few different ways of doing it. So I work like one-on-one sessions with people, and I also run a masturbation circle for women, which is a monthly event that I usually do around the full moon. So I've got one this weekend. I also do like erotic meditation with couples, for them to connect more and understand the difference between their pleasure, their desire, and their arousal. I work as a sexological body worker as well, and I also like to promote events for other people so that they can come run their workshops at my place.
All the sex stuff.
All the sex stuff.
All the sex stuff. Wow, yeah, that's and you were the top salesperson at when we were milkmen.
Yeah, and now I'm vegan, so I've done a 180 in life.
Really, you're a vegan now?
Yeah.
What changed? When did you slip to the dark side?
Well, that job that we had, and I actually became a vegetarian after quitting that job because they had us going to McDonald's every day, right? And I was like, now I'm addicted to McDonald's, and this is terrible. Luckily, I didn't put on too much weight somehow, but I decided that it was like super unhealthy, and I was like, I've got to cut that out of my life. So I decided to cut meat out of my life. I was like, I'll just do this for a few months while I get my health back. And then that kind of led on, and I was like, this is actually much better for me. I'm feeling a lot better in myself. And then I became a yoga teacher. And then I was in this strange part with my yoga teaching. It was really out of alignment for me actually to be a yoga teacher, because I had this idea of being a yoga teacher, you had to be really pure and really like not drink and not do drugs, and I was still quite a party girl at that point in my life, so it was really not in alignment with me.
You couldn't have worn a white dress at your wedding. That's just
true. So I was thinking that so actually I was completely like eating meat and doing drugs and partying and drinking and all those things when I was a yoga teacher, and I was like, this is just not me. And then what happened? Then I joined the dark side and became this sex witch and tantric witch, and started a bit understanding, like wanting to educate people and all this kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden, I don't drink anymore. I don't eat meat. I don't do drugs. So all of a sudden, like now I feel like I'm more in alignment. I feel the healthiest I've ever been. So it's really interesting that it's like some sort of balancing act in my life. I find like the more I'm able to express myself through being everything that I need to be, which is probably being quite liberated sexually, I'm actually finding that I can, like I don't see myself as having a pure diet or anything like that anymore. I've just accidentally become a vegan and accidentally stopped drinking and accidentally don't seem to party anymore because I'm getting a lot more like stimulation from the other things that I'm doing in my life.
completely different Vicky than I used to know.
I know, right?
Wow.
Are you still the same I know and love?
What was that?
Are you still the same captain that I know and love?
Oh my god. Oh my god, Captain.
It's a great name.
I haven't heard that name in a long time. I haven't heard that name in years. I don't know. No, definitely not. Definitely not. I'm not sure if you've seen some of the stuff that I've done. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to decide if, I'll just share it here. Like most of my listeners already know this, that I was giving live demonstrations of yoni massages for a little while. I had actually explored with becoming a sexological body worker as well, and I did have a couple of clients, not all that many. And actually, I'm starting to get a little bit of feedback. Oh, it's gone now. Okay, cool. What else? Going to sex parties, swingers clubs. These are things that I definitely wouldn't have done before. Yeah, I was pretty. I don't know if I was like uptight, but repressed, I think, in a lot of ways. I wasn't necessarily myself fully.
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah. I actually have a workshop that's coming out later on this year, and I call it I'm going to call it Slaying the Last Dragon. I know it sounds really kooky, but this is my theory of what you're just saying, is that sexuality is like the last thing that we really come to terms with, I believe. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like the last piece of the puzzle. It's like if we're looking at spiritual growth or like self-development, it's like the last thing that we can conquer often. Sometimes we have everything else in balance, and it's like this one piece that's always a little bit out of balance, I find. And that's why I call it like slaying the last dragon, basically.
I like that. That's very true.
Yeah.
Because I definitely had a lot of other things going on, sort of under control in my life, but it was the sexuality where as soon as I went into that, that's when kind of all hell broke loose. A lot of my identity got sort of ripped apart. But once I really started to get a hold of it, my life started to turn around. I started to find a lot more confidence, but it's something that you can kind of sweep under the rug. If you're not making any money, that's not really something that you can really hide. If you're, having really shitty relationships, I mean, that's not really something that you can hide because, people can see you'll have your relationships and it ends in a ball of fury or a ball of flames. But if you've got issues around your sexuality, that's stuff that you can keep hidden.
Yeah. Exactly, and we don't have the space to talk about it. I discover things all the time that I'm not bringing into the light, and I think I'm quite a sexually liberated person now. I've been on this journey for some time now, and still I'm finding things that are like coming up in me that like it's like unconditioning yourself from society, I think, a lot of the time, because we don't realize how much conditioning we have around what we believe is sexuality. I get told all the time like a lot of what I'm doing is completely illegal, and I'm shocked at that because I'm like, how can this be illegal? I'm not actually doing anything, Having people like dance naked in your house is apparently illegal. Like there's all this stuff that I'm just like, what? Like crazy, yeah. Like Queensland has a lot of laws over here.
People is that actually illegal to be doing that?
I don't know. I've had such mixed messages. I'm just sort of trying to let it go over my head because I've got to do what I've got to do. I've really focused on this revolution that I'm like very passionate about now. And I think it's hilarious that I didn't actually mention one of my biggest passions in my 2 minutes. I'm realizing I didn't talk about polyamory, which is what I talk about all the time.
Or polyandry, or so that not what's the other word there? The one that's not quite polyamory. What?
The word that I invented.
Is that the word that you invented? Okay.
Yeah, word monogamy.
Monogamy. Okay.
This is one of my biggest things right now is so like a lot of people, I'm sure you would have come around a lot of polyamorous people with your journey. So what I'm finding a lot of what's happening with this hierarchy polyamory is that people are using it to avoid a lot of debt and to it's like the more people that you're intimate with, the less depth that you can have in those connections, because one, there's only so much time we have in the day, and also a lot of people are using these other connections to hide from themselves, basically, and use it as an escapism from the depth of their primary relationship. So this is why I'm addressing like hierarchy polyamory. This is what I have the most experience with, and it's something that's, I think a lot of people are feeling it within the polyamory community. So they have like these primary partners, but what does that even really mean anymore? Because a lot of the time these primary partners are just around because they're spending the most time with them. And then if somebody else comes along and this gets a little bit hard, they'll jump ship and jump into another relationship. And I don't think that's real intimacy, and there's not much depth in that. So I'm really passionate about people sticking by each other, which is where the word comes from. So gamy comes from the word gamos, in Greek means marriage. So that's like an important part of our society that I think we need to keep in a way, is standing by each other and working through things, because this is where the depth is, this is where the growth is. But I'm also acknowledging that people can't get everything they need from one person. You know, like in the way of spiritual growth or the way of self-development, you can't learn all your lessons from one book. So I guess for me, it's not about having relationships, boyfriends or girlfriends with other men or other women. It's about experiencing as much spiritual growth as I can get from connecting with a lot of people. And I find monogamy can really shut that down and really stop you from growing. And actually, a lot of what monogamy is based on is man meets woman, or people meet people, and then they stay in this monogamous relationship, and the other person is expected to stay exactly the same as they were the day that they got together. And if they change, or if anything unfolds and big life changes happen, and they just have to keep being that same person because that's the person the other person met. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then if someone hasn't necessarily grown or changed or had the confidence to face certain elements of, say, their sexuality when they first met, and as they get older, they decide, oh, I'm lying to myself. I've got the confidence, I've got the security, I've got the safety. I think I really want to tap into these other components of my being that I've shut down for so long, but I'm in this relationship. And then people will go to sex workers, or they'll cheat in relationships because they're trying to tap into other aspects of their character that they can't necessarily do in monogamy. And because we're not allowed to have these kinds of conversations, or they don't necessarily feel safe talking about it in the relationship, or there's a lot of shame, they'll try to do it in the background or in the dark, or, in the back alleys. So it sounds like monogamy, which I like the word. I like the word because I also agree that if people can use polyamory, and I'm going to use that in quotations because I think some people say, yeah, I'm in a polyamorous relationship. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, so what sort of agreements do you have? Like, how do you deal with that? They're like, oh, I don't know, we just do whatever we want, date whoever we want. It's like, oh, that's going to go, that's not going to work. It's going to end very, very badly.
And this is the other part of monogamy for me, is not necessarily polyamory. It's actually a combination of both, because I have friends that are doing changing this. It's about writing your own script, basically. And you can be in a relationship where you're not sleeping with other people. But my point of monogamy is that, like, if you and I were in a monogamous relationship, but we felt that we were wanting to go inwards quite a lot, we didn't want to have a lot of sex with other people, what we would do is I'd say, oh, hi Ryan, actually I've been there's this guy at work and I actually feel this big sexual connection to him. I just wanted to bring it to the table so that you know where I'm at in my brain, and actually being able to have that conversation. And we would probably decide if we were more monogamous that we didn't want to act that out, you know. But it's the point is that we brought it to the table, and we can work through the spiritual growth together of what that means and why I'm having the desire towards that man. Makes sense?
Absolutely. It's a lot. It sounds like a lot of this is you incorporate a lot of what's called shadow work, exploring why we're turned on by things. Sorry, I didn't. You said you love shadows. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I love shadow work. It's like my passion. Yeah.
Same. Oh my. Yes. 100%. Yes. Depth psychology. Carl Jung. I've been like, right? A mindgasm. Mindgasms. And mind fuckery. It's a mind fuck. That's awesome. All of this is really awesome to see where you were before and to see where you are now. It seems like you've really channeled your sexual energy, because you were very you're always tapped in. You were always very sensual. And it seems like you've really channeled your sexual energy to create a movement in a lot of ways. I mean, I think it's fantastic. How did you all of a sudden become a tantric witch? I don't fully get it. I don't understand. What is a tantric witch, and how did you even get there? Yeah. Enlighten me.
So I don't even know where the inspiration came from. I think like I'd been doing a lot of the self-development work on myself anyway, about integrating my shadows and understanding why I was the way I was and what was going on for me in relationships. I read the Ethical Slut book when I was like 16, and I just always had it in my head about this polyamory idea. And then I went through all these relationships and had a particularly abusive relationship not long after I met you and like left Sydney, and was stuck in that for a little while, and that kind of really brought my shadows to the surface, because you know, I really believe that what I was looking for in him was just like this. He was the way I was accessing my shadow, and I saw he was very much a divine mirror of all of my shadow stuff, and I really had to go into the depths and hit the rock bottom, so I can find what that shadow looked like, and so I could find the inner strength to prove to myself like how powerful that dark witch is within me. Once I found that, and I really like, at that point, you know what it's like in abusive relationships, I cut off everybody in my life. Basically, I was alone here in the Gold Coast. I had no real proper friends and no real people that I was really connecting with from the heart, because my heart was so wounded. And I just somehow found the guts to leave him, getting out of my life, and just go out alone and be fully alone on the other side of the world from all my family and friends. And that was when I really discovered this dark witch in me. I was like, wow, I'm actually really powerful. I actually have the ability to do all these things that I want to do, and I don't actually need anything from anyone. And so I was like feeling into that energy for a while. And when I was in that energy, I actually managed to attract this really beautiful man who's now my partner today, and has gone on. And I met him, and pretty quickly I was like, you know what, I think that I really need to do this polyamory thing with you. So within like the first month or so of our relationship, I was polyamorous with me. And then I had to leave the country again. The good old visa got me. And we had to leave the country, so we went and traveled the world together. So we went over to England, we met my family, we went to Iceland, we did Netherlands, and then we went over to Central America, did the whole of Central America, went to South America. But I've done so much backpacking in my life, and I really wasn't that passionate about backpacking because I've done so much of it, that I was like, right, I'm going to have a purpose this time. I need to find out what this traveling trip is about, me figuring out exactly what I need to be doing. So I then I applied for a Vipassana, and then there was a competition for an Ayahuasca retreat on Facebook of all places.
On Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook. I don't know how it came up with my sponsored post. I don't even know how.
How is that even legal?
I know, I don't even. Maybe in Brazil it is legal, so maybe that's why.
Oh, okay. That would explain it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it came to me, and then it kept coming to me like a lot of different omens. And my boyfriend Danny, he's actually an incredible writer, and so I was like, "There's this competition for writing." He was like, "Well, obviously I'm going to win. I'm the best writer ever." I was like, "Well, I don't doubt that." And then so he wrote these amazing articles, and we won this competition. It was like worth about $3,000 in total. It was crazy that we won it. It was on this luxury retreat in Brazil, and it was pretty mental that we won it and like how this all came about. It felt really divine because it was not planned at all in our trip before we went away. And then went and did this ayahuasca, and then I just had all this download that I've been a witch like since the beginning of time, basically, and that I have like a really deep message in me, and that I've got a lot more ability to live outside of the status quo than most people, and I really have to hone in on that privilege and like make a movement for people, basically.
Wow.
That's the long story short.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. That sounds like your inner witch really tapped in and created the circumstances for you to go to Brazil. I'm assuming you ended up doing the ayahuasca retreat?
Yeah, so we did a Vipassana for 10 days, and then 4 days later we went and did this ayahuasca retreat.
Oh, man, that is heavy.
I don't do things by half. I'm either in the deep end or I'm not in it at all.
Oh, my God. I couldn't imagine doing Vipassana, because I've done both. And I couldn't imagine doing Vipassana and then ayahuasca.
And in 2 different countries as well. So we were in Panama when we did Vipassana, and then we finished there, went straight to the airport, flew to Brazil, got to Rio, and then flew to Bahia, and then did the ayahuasca. So those 4 days between were not relaxing, they were traveling. They were getting to that destination, which was a lot of fun.
So for anyone listening who doesn't know what Vipassana is, it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you can't make eye contact. There's noble silence. No eye contact, no talking. And then ayahuasca is basically a Peruvian brew or Amazonian brew. I guess it started off in Peru, where it's basically DMT. And you drink DMT and then you go on an 8-hour insane journey. And some say that you leave the planet, but I don't know, my experience, I kind of went into the depths of myself and the connection, what I'm connected with. So I actually felt more connected with the cosmos than I did leaving myself to go into the cosmos, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically Vipassana and ayahuasca. So the whole witch thing, would you say that when you felt that you were this witch, was it because you started feeling a lot of power in yourself? I'm not sure I understand what witch means for you and why you identified with that.
Yeah, so for me the witch thing is like, it was almost like I was a witch back in the dream time before like we came into consciousness as humans. And in every past life I've ever had, even when I've been a man, and I'm pretty sure I was like a stockbroker in a past life as well. Like
you're Jordan Belfort? Oh no, he's still alive, so okay.
Understand from how you knew me back in my sales days.
Yeah.
This kind of ruthless energy which seems to come out in me, like, and it is like still part of this like dark witch energy that comes through me a lot of the time as well. So the witchery thing is I've been a witch in every one of my past lives. On a lot of my ayahuasca trips, I was told that I was a witch in my first one. And the second one, I really saw my purpose, and I understood how my career was going to look. And then in the third one, it was all about using my powers. And that's really like, we are sexuality. You have been on this journey with sexuality as well. So I'm sure you understand that we have like the sexuality that we can bring to people of the world, right? What I can teach people in the world. And then there's the deeper stuff that like sexuality really goes up into the other realms, I believe. That's kind of what we're talking about with energy, full body orgasms. It's like you're connecting to the cosmos in a whole different way. And so on my third ayahuasca trip, I was really learning about how to use all my powers, and I can actually manifest anything that I want, and I really know that now. And everything that I've ever wanted, I have always got. And basically, during this past couple of years, I've really learned how to receive everything that I need financially, like for my heart, my emotional state, for the greater good of the world. Like I have managed to use my witchcraft to create everything that I need.
So when you say use your witchcraft, what is it that you do when you use your witchcraft? Is it just the power that you have within you?
Yeah, so I do a lot of ritual. I do a lot of calling in of different planets. I do a lot of body work on myself. this is kind of about where my masturbation movement is coming into things. So like a lot of what I do is like masturbation for success. So it's really about when you tap into the real truth of your masturbation, it's really nothing to do with jacking off or rubbing your clit like it's some DJ booth, you know? Like it's so
flicking the bean.
Brass.
Sorry, can you say that again? There's I'm noticing that there's a bit of a disconnect with the audio. That if I talk, then normally if I talk and someone else is talking, we can still hear each other. But there's I don't suppose. Do you have headphones?
Yeah, I do. Do you want me to get them?
Yeah. Do you have headphones that have the microphone on them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's try it.
Ooh.
Oh yes. So
much
good.
better?
So
Okay,
much
great.
better. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'm just gonna make a little note here. Headphones. Cool. Yeah. So these masturbation circles. Okay. Yeah. So you were saying it's not just about flicking the bean.
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's it. So it's really like when I do my masturbation, it's like a fully embodied practice, and I go into my into all the cosmos that's inside of me, and I can remove blocks, I can channel things in, I can bring in certain elements from the universe, I can like remove things that are no longer serving me. It's like so much to it, and it's really hard to explain it with language a lot of the time because it sounds kind of woo woo, and it's possible in everybody basically, and it's really not as woo woo as it feels when you're in it, because masturbating is actually a really earthly experience, you know, connecting to that sexual energy and not just reaching some goal, but actually using it as like a discipline, as a practice, in the same way as you would yoga. And that actually kind of leads me on to about the masturbation circles. What I do in the masturbation circles is give women permission to really go deep into their practice. And that happens through, like, when we're practicing, it's not like we're all looking at each other like, what's this woman doing? What's this woman doing? It's more like just having these soft eyes and just feeling the energy of the room, like, lifting. So a lot of this kind of brings into the whole thing about how women are kind of traumatized as well with their sexuality, like the whole #MeToo thing. Like, majority of women have had some sort of abuse in some way, in some form in their life. And for them to really, truly drop into their sexual energy, they need to feel supported by their sisters. So when we masturbate alone, actually, we're not truly safe, because we don't know what's going to happen with, you know, somebody can walk in the door, someone can break in. So actually being alone for a woman isn't very safe. So it's actually, women only really feel safe when they can remove all the toxic femininity out of their life and be in a circle of women who are supporting them and go into their sexual energy. But we don't actually have that opportunity because there's so much fear around our sexuality, because a woman's sexuality is so powerful. So when they're connecting in the room with all these women, they're kind of feeling the energy that actually guides them to touch themselves in a different way that they're not used to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot in there. So let's dive in a bit. You said something, toxic femininity. I mean, I don't necessarily. What do you mean by that? Because I have sort of visceral responses when I hear toxic femininity or toxic masculinity, more so with toxic masculinity, because I'm a man and I identify as masculine and a man. So naturally I'm going to feel a bit more of a visceral reaction to it. But something always feels off whenever I hear toxic femininity or toxic masculinity, simply because it implies that there's something wrong with it or wrong about it. I think there are some things that aren't serving us. But whether or not I agree with it being toxic, that's not something that I really can get behind with regards to the I guess just the word toxic kind of bugs me a little bit. I have a toxic feeling when I hear the word toxic.
Good.
That's
awesome.
So what do you mean when you're saying toxic femininity? What is it that they're getting rid of?
So it's really not like a thing that's, when I say toxic femininity, I'm not talking about like, femininity is within all human beings, and it is like not associated with women. So when I say toxic femininity, it's inside of you and it's inside of me, this toxic femininity. It is the part of us that is immature. It's the part of us that's not integrated. It's competitive, it's bitchy, it's jealous, it's all the things that get in the way of truly loving one another. It's the neediness, it's the part of you that wants to be validated. It's all of these things that are not so comfortable when they sit inside of your body. I'm not going to call them ugly, but I'm going to call them uncomfortable emotions. So when we feel them, we feel a separation between us and the universe.
In a lot of ways, it's kind of beautiful, that stuff then. It lacks beauty when we get stuck in that separation, because it's feeling connected that feels euphoric. It's feeling connected that is beautiful and truly loving. In order to truly love and feel that connection, we have to understand that separation as well. So in one respect, it is beautiful, but I guess it starts to become toxic when we live in that separation. Is that? I guess that's kind of what you're getting at too, right?
And this kind of brings me back to the monogamy message. I don't know if you saw the video that I did the other day, but a lot of the time, monogamy and polyamory really brings all of your toxicity into the real realm, because for instance, like recently my partner started dating a really attractive woman who has big breasts and has, you know, the big lips, you know, and she looks really beautiful. I'm trying to like say what I'm trying to get at is that she looks she looks like the status quo, you know, like the status quo,
an Instagram model
of what beauty is. Basically that's it. Yeah, you've got it. You've hit it on the head. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's basically that part that is something that I have a bit of an aversion to, basically, because I've spent my life being beautiful outside of the status quo, right? And when it comes to me, and like he wants to date this woman who looks like all these things, and she loves like luxury cars, and she's very, very different from me, it can be really like it can bring all of my stuff up to the surface, which I call my toxic femininity. So I feel jealous. So I feel like I'm not worthy of his love. I feel that he would want, that he's more attracted to her, like all this stupid stuff in my head that's just not serving me at all. And what that can do then is actually bring a separation between me and this woman. And really what I'm trying to do with this monogamy and with my message is bridge this gap in the toxic femininity. Like whenever I feel like that a woman is like my competition or something, because she's the same age as me and she's got all these, and she's also beautiful, and she's also on the journey with tantra and everything, instead of me going, fuck this girl, I hate her, blah, blah, blah. Oh, am I allowed to swear on this podcast? Anyway.
Well, if we weren't, shit, because I've already sworn a whole bunch already.
Okay, good. So, you know, but that's the usual way that women are dealing with this, because we have no other coping mechanisms of how to deal with that stuff. And it's not just happening in polyamory, it's happening in monogamy. Like, let's say this is what I said on my video as well. Like, if Danny and I were not polyamorous, then this would still be happening, but it'd be happening so much more under the carpet. He would meet this woman, he would be attracted to her, she would be attracted to him, and they would be flirting, because that's what happens when you feel sexual chemistry with somebody. And then and now we've brought it to the table in this monogamy, because that's what monogamy is about, bringing it all to the table. And he said, like, I feel this attraction to her. And I said, I can see that she does for you too. I'd like it if you explored that, because that maybe we can find some learning in that. And so now what it's actually done is bring up some of my other woman wounds and my stuff around women and my stuff around society, and it's helped me push through it. And I've had so much learning and so much growth out of doing that. And what I actually did is I went into all the ugly emotions, like uncomfortable emotions inside my body, feeling possessive over Danny, feeling all these like uncomfortable feelings, and then like sat with them, like felt into the emotions of them, and then pushed through them to a certain degree. I still feel vulnerable in them now, even now that's happening. But I felt enough strength to go to her and say, hey, I just want to let you know that I've been feeling really triggered by your beauty, and I've got a lot coming up. Bearing in mind, I don't know this woman. So this was a little bit out there to do that.
That is very vulnerable.
It was really vulnerable, and it was really quite scary, if I'm really honest. It was quite terrifying, because I didn't know if she was just going to use that against me. You know, I didn't know whether she was going to go, oh, great, actually, I do want to steal your boyfriend, and now that you've told me the chink in your armor, I can really use this against you. Luckily, she's a beautiful woman on the inside as well. Because in the past, I have had these things used against me, and it has been really difficult, and I have given up my vulnerability, and it has been shut down on me. So I do have that fear in there, and that fear is very real, and it's very relevant. It's not really an uncalled for fear.
Well, I think it's
But
beautiful that
how-
you were able to tap into that, and regardless of being hurt in the past, you decided to still be vulnerable in that moment. A lot of people shut down. They get hurt a couple times, and they instantly say, I will never be vulnerable again. Then they put up the wall and the armor, and then they live in that separation. Sorry, I keep touching my mic. They live in that separation that you were just talking about. So I think it's beautiful that you had the courage to do that.
Yeah, and that's actually what I think. So this leads me on to a lot of different ideas, but one of my theories about pleasure and pain, they come from the same part of the brain. So to feel all of our pleasure, we have to feel all of our pain, which is another thing I take women through in the masturbation circle. So basically,
So do you go around smacking them when they're masturbating? Take around a crop and like smack them. Feel the pain.
Actually, in my masturbation circles, it's more about feeling the emotional pain.
Okay.
When I do yoni massages, I do work a lot with impact plays. Actually, that might be quite surprising to you, but that's how I incorporate like the element of conscious BDSM into my practice. Is like if you feel that a lot of women, when they can't tap in, when they're receiving yoni massage, they feel that they aren't being met in their darkness and that they have to be tender. And a lot of women, they treat women really fragilely. And women are not fragile. They're actually stronger than anything. Like, everyone says don't be a pussy or whatever, right? And it's ironic because these take a pounding all the friggin' time.
I'm sorry, but like I put up a post, I think it was like a year, maybe even a year and a half ago. I don't know. It was like, I kind of look at a vagina or a pussy is like Rocky Balboa. And just gets the shit beat out of him. He's all bloodied and all like wet and everything. Is that all you got? But then testicles are like a soccer player. It's one flick to the nuts and they're down for the count. So I mean, if you call me, I would much rather be called a pussy than be called balls.
Yeah. Exactly.
Call me a pussy.
People treat women as if they're these fragile objects that can't take anything, but they're so friggin' strong. So actually, when I do my yoni massages, I actually incorporate some impact play. So I might do this kind of action on someone's thighs or like on someone's chest. And actually, that really helps them tap into this part of them that's like, you know what, I've been battling for so long and I've been having all this pressure on my heart. And I'm so much stronger than just that hit. And like sometimes you can take it into that place and it gets people into that wild momentum, into that trance-like state that's like, you know what, I'm fucking more than this. I'm fucking more than all my uncomfortable emotions, and it helps them tap into that shadow, which I'm very passionate about.
Clearly.
And that wild, dark witch, like that is in all women, this wild woman that's just like been shut down because so many women, as soon as they show that crazy bitch side of themselves, that psychopath side of themselves, they get told it's not allowed. They get told it's not okay. And I'm saying it is okay, and that I'm creating a container for that, and I'm creating a space for that. That's what's important for me, and it's what's important for the world. Like every part of us needs to be integrated. We just have to find the right container for it.
Yes. I mean, you're also doing it in a way where you're tapping into that darkness and that shadow. You're using it to construct and to build and to bring people together, right? Rather than lashing out that darkness to destroy something to rip down so you can feel better about yourself. So I wrote something recently, and it got some attention, and it's because I'm scared that people are going to use their darkness to destroy rather than to use and tap into their darkness and their anger and their pain to build something constructive out of it. And that's extremely hard to do. And I've had some people reach out, say that it was fantastic and thank you for writing it, and then other people saying that I'm doing something damaging. But all I really want is for people to do exactly what you're talking about, is really tap into that anger and that fury and that power, integrate it into yourself, and then use it to construct and build and bring us closer. But there's a lot of healing that goes into stuff like that. So when I'm really curious as well about this masturbation circle, because I've kind of heard of things like this before, but it's never really turned it. I mean, it's kind of turned my head like, what? I've heard of the soggy biscuit, but that's
well, that is the next step.
Yes.
I do really want to bring men into this practice, but it's like there's this what I'm wearing at the moment is really bringing all the women together, because there's a lot of stuff going on just within women, and how I talked about like how most women have had abuse in some way, and really like there is no greater protection than your sisters when your sisters are on your side and when you can say anything to them, which is really what I'm delving into right now, like bringing up all that stuff. And like, and you know, there's always two ways of dealing with things. Like you said, like anger in the unconsciousness is destructive and it destroys. When anger is in consciousness, there's passion and it's building and it's drive, right? And this is what I'm trying to get women to experience, so they connect with all their emotions that are inside of them. So when I have these masturbation circles, I'll have like a group of 10 to 20 women in the space, and some of them are in these orgasmic high bliss states and they're laughing and there's just so much coming through them. And then other women are like grieving and just like you can see the pain is moving up through them. And what's happening as this is going on is that they're actually feeling the support from all the other sisters in the room, and the sexual energy and the rage and the sadness and the passion and the fire and the joy and everything is actually just uniting to create a container that builds these women up. So when they leave, there is this euphoric strengthening of these women that when they walk out the door.
As you were talking, I was really taken into it. As you right as you were ending, I was like, oh, she's finishing. I need to pay it right. I was really in that.
It's my turn. Yeah. And that's what it is. It's so exciting. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a story of actually the first time I did this, so that you don't have to talk and I'll do a little bit of talking for you?
Yeah, because I'm still processing all this. Please talk.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So the first masturbation circle I did was a few months ago, and I got all these women in a circle. I've got a quite big deck outside, and it's
You've got a big what?
So deck, DECK.
Oh, okay, there's that accent.
And so I had the full moon. It was a full moon. The stars were out. I had a big bonfire in the middle, and then I created this ritual for these women. We all sat on our yoga mats and circled this bonfire. And under the stars, I was explaining to these women about how they can access more pleasure from touching their vulva in certain ways, and how they don't have to go straight to the clitoris and just have a 2-minute orgasm and then it's over. So I set this timer for about 30 or 45 minutes. Can't remember now. Anyway, I set this timer for a long period of time. And during this time, I was like, so you should express your emotions. You can express everything that's inside of you. And then I put the timer on and I had the music on, and these women were starfished, just lying there. I was like, oh God, like there was no sound. I didn't even know if they were masturbating. I was like, this is not what I created in my mind. This is not what I just told them they can do. So then I had to like really go inside, and I was like, right, how am I going to fix this problem for next time? Like, and actually they all had a really liberated time, and it didn't go badly for them. They felt really liberated by it. There was a lot of other witchcraft involved that they got a lot out of. But I was like, nah, they're not getting it. Like, there's more here, and they need to go deeper. So I was like, how am I going to give these women permission to go deeper? And I was like racking my brains. It got to the day before the event. I had nothing still. And I was like, right, I'm going to do some of my own witchcraft now. I tapped into my own emotions. I was like, what am I going to need to give these women to really get them to express everything and to feel all this magic that I'm talking about? So I decided I was going to have to masturbate in front of them. And this really was like when I started to think about all the toxic femininity, because I was like, right, I'm 26, I am slim built, like I fit into a lot of what the status quo wants from me a lot of the time that a lot of other women don't. And so I had to really deal with all that, and I had to think, I've got mothers in that room. I've got women that are full hippies that grow their armpit hair out, that grow their leg hair out. I've also got the opposite end of the spectrum where I've got women that have got great big fake boobs and, you know, drive a Mercedes, you know, like I've got the real spectrum of women in this space, and I've really got to work with what they're going to think of me and how they're going to perceive this message. So I finally decided, I was like, right, this is what needs to happen. I'm going to do this. So I laid down and I was like, right, I'm switching off from being the facilitator of this circle for the next few minutes. I put on 4 songs. I'm going to play these 4 songs and I'm going to go into myself. I don't know what's going to happen when I go in there. I don't know what emotions I'm going to dig up. I don't know if it's going to be pretty. I don't know if it's going to be ugly and destructive. If I'm going to get angry, if I'm going to scream. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just need you to watch. So then I took them on this journey. I played my songs, and they all sat there in silence as I did this thing. And it came to the end of the 4th song, the music stopped. I had gone on this journey where I'd touched my whole body. I stripped off all my clothes. I'd cried, and I'd felt all these crazy emotions inside of me. I had no idea they were there even in that moment. And I laid back and I was like, holy shit, this is so scary. Like, I don't even want to look up and look at these people right now. I'm just going to keep looking at the ceiling. I'm going to take some big breaths, and then I'm going to tune back into what's happening in the room, because I didn't know how they were going to take it. I slowly sat up. I looked around the room. I made eye contact with each woman individually. And I just took a breath, and luckily someone spoke for me, because I didn't have many words in that state. I was completely in my body and not in my mind. And some woman just went, wow. And then another woman said, thank you. Another woman said, thank you. Another woman said, thank you. And then I felt ready to speak, and I was like, okay, this has been received. I've landed this. This message is now received. And I was like, thank God for that. I had no idea that was going to go down. And it was really vulnerable, and I was very worried. I was like, and all of my stuff came up, around how women look at each other's yonis, and they think, oh, that's not what it looks like in pornography. That's not what the sexuality that I'm used to seeing in pornography. That's not what actually sex looks like for me. And so many of us are so oppressed in our sexuality without even dealing with our emotions. So when you bring emotions into sex, it can look really ugly for people. And I was ready to go there. So that's what I wanted these women to see. And actually one woman picked up on it and was like, wow, thank you for giving me permission. I feel like I'm ready to do this now. And so I put the music on. I set the timer for 45 minutes. And these women were like, oh, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. They were just so in it. They were just screaming and crying and being everything that it means to be a woman. They were laughing with joy, and it was all happening in different times. And they weren't lying there like a starfish. They were moving their bodies, and they were feeling all the breath and all the energy travel through them, and having full body orgasms before even touching their yoni. It was incredible. Yeah. And it was a really powerful night.
I need a cigarette. And I don't even smoke. I have to say, Vicky, you are a big pussy.
Thank you.
That took some serious courage to do that. Holy shit. I want to know more about how that looks for women. At the same time, I also want to know how it looks for men. I mean, because I'm trying to relate in my body, and it's not something that I can connect with. How does it look? How does it look for guys? Have you ever seen or facilitated a co-ed group, or I mean, how for
I've been.
So go ahead, yeah. I'll ask one question at a time.
Okay, cool. So I have been to mixed masturbation circles, and it's a very different experience. And I haven't facilitated them, so how I would do it would be very different. So I plan to do that. That is something that I plan to do. So it's been very much an individual experience, and I felt that there has been a lot of people holding back. And I do think that maybe there is a step towards going there with men first and facilitating a men's masturbation circle alone, so that they can really feel into actually you're giving me some really great ideas even just talking about this. But I really think that it's about men needing to go there alone and deal, because there is this toxic masculinity that is happening amongst men, which is, I believe, separate from women. And a lot of, you have guys who have toxic femininity and toxic masculinity as well, but there's a lot of what's happening is very different to what's happening for women, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I can't be an expert on that because I'm not a man and I don't know what that looks like, but I have a lot of really great accountability partners. I don't know if you saw me talking about that, men that are my lovers, but also are just really in this for growth with me, that I really think could hold that kind of space. And there's a lot of different levels of what testosterone does to men and how it makes them feel, and this feeling of wanting to fight, but also just really wanting to protect themselves and all that kind of stuff. And I think there'd be a lot of dealing with that and a lot of really processing that kind of stuff to tap into their emotions so that they can connect to the women. And I do think that actually around women, they do seem to go a lot deeper, but that their wounds are very different.
Yeah.
To how it is for women.
Yeah. comparing men and women is like comparing apples and oranges, or apples and bananas, apples and hammers. They're not. We're different. I mean, there are a lot of similarities, but we're also extremely different. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something that I'll explore or look into outside of this conversation, since that's not necessarily your wheelhouse. Yeah, because I mean, the first thing that comes to my head is how would I stay turned? I guess, well, how would I stay turned on in the sense of having an erection? But this sort of masturbation isn't necessarily about having an erection and jerking off. It's about feeling your body and feeling different parts of your body. And I've done practices like that on my own, and it's hell. It was when the first time that I did that type of like touching myself, and even though I was on my own, I was scared. I felt embarrassed to be touching other parts of my body. I felt embarrassed. I felt, what else did I feel? Scared, guilty, ashamed. There was definitely some shame. Yeah. I felt in some feelings of just weird. And when I put the word weird to it, it's because I couldn't necessarily identify the feelings. But it definitely felt uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable also because it was very new, because I'd never really experienced that before. I haven't dove into those masturbation practices enough, I don't think, but I've explored enough that I recognize the power of it and what it's given me. So, and I can just, and you know, doing things in a group as well. I mean, if you really tap into your sexuality and really feel yourself when you're masturbating, not just to reach orgasm, but to just feel yourself and feel your body and feel whatever energy is there, that's powerful on its own. But, you know, the reason why ritual is so powerful, if we look at churches or synagogue or mosques or whatever kind of religious or spiritual practice, it becomes that much more powerful when we're doing it with other people. And there's a reason why there's a congregation, is because we pick up on the energy. We really do. We feel that. So given how powerful sexuality is, it kind of blows my mind just intellectualizing it right now, because I haven't necessarily experienced. I mean, I've been to sex parties, and there's definitely the huge charge to the air, but nothing that is very deliberately focused on, you know, masturbation and conscious sex circle. It kind of blows my mind to think of how powerful that would be, to do something in a congregation of other people having sex and going through that kind of energy. That's wow.
It's actually a really good way of for women to become more independent in their sexuality and to become more independent in their emotions, because a lot of the reasons why we don't delve into our emotions is because we can't handle our emotions alone. And that's often why a lot of women do go into the crazy bitch psycho energy of being like, help me, like I fucking can't do this on my own anymore. Like, you know, I need you to ground me with your masculinity, or I need you to give me something to help me with this overwhelming emotions, right? So that's what I'd actually do as well in the space with the masturbation circle, is encourage women, because I can see a lot of women getting frozen sometimes. You can imagine, like, when you're about to tap into your into like some deep dark emotions that have been suppressed for a really long time, and you can feel that these women can hold this, they kind of freeze up and they maybe are just looking around like, this is quite a lot of intense energy. And I actually help them start to move it. So this is why everybody needs to be moving their body, because it's actually so stuck and it's so suppressed in the bottom of their gut. So it makes them feel, it gives them the independence, because when you're at a swingers party, whatever, and you're connected with another person, but there's other people having sex around you, you're not completely alone.
No.
You've got someone there supporting you in that moment. So you're not alone. But when you're masturbating, you are fully alone. And there's nobody there to distract you. You've got no distractions from yourself and what's really going on for you when you're in that space.
Now, how do the women not get distracted by the other women that are masturbating and feeling their pleasure? I mean, do the women look around to say, is this okay? Like, do they?
That all happens in, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
That all happens in the permission, and actually there's not a lot of looking around, because what happens is that women don't need to look around a lot of the time, because it's the energy of the room. The energy of the room gives them permission to go deep. And actually that's another reason why I have to like usually lead the way and go first, because if I'm screaming and I'm really feeling ill, well, not that I would scream every time, I can imagine sometimes it is just joy that's coming up, whatever's coming up in me. The way sexual energy actually works is like, and I learned this actually when I was in at a workshop, is that I was at a workshop where people were doing emotional release. So emotional release is when you like scream and you punch pillows and you do all that stuff to get your emotions up. Catharsis, right? And so there was one person, I was having like a sexual connection with somebody. I wasn't having sex. I was just sitting in yab yum, and I was just feeling all this sexual energy that was coming up between the two of us.
What's yab yum for people who don't know?
Okay, yeah. So my legs were like around this man's waist, and we were just connecting and looking into each other's eyes, and he was just had his hand on my heart, and we were just feeling the sexual energy between us. And then somebody else in the room was walked into the room. I still don't even know to this day who it was, because I was so captivated by the sexual energy I was experiencing. Came into the room, was bashing his pillows, screaming, and having all this intense catharsis, like you said. And what was happening for me is that as they got to the peak of their pain and whatever they were processing, I got to this peak of this heartgasm, this like orgasm that I started to feel in my chest as they got to the peak of it. And then as they sort of subsided, the fatigue started to set in for them. All of a sudden, my sexual energy and the guy's sexual energy I was with, our sexual energy dissipated, and it kind of came down. So actually, whatever's happening in the crux of these moments, you can imagine over 45 minutes, there's a lot of cruxes and coming down and like up and down. And that's actually what's happening in that. And over the 45 minutes, they get into like a trance-like state where they're not thinking like, I need to look at all these other women for permission, or can I go there? They're processing so much in that time. Like 45 minutes is a long time to really sit and connect to yourself.
It is a long time. A very long time. I don't think I generally don't masturbate for that long. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour. I mean, when I was doing my practices, I was doing minimum 20 minutes.
Yeah.
At least once every 2 days. I did that off and on for several years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at my notes here. How does this stuff start to tap into creating more abundance? God, this is such an awesome conversation to be having with you right now, Vicky. I
know.
Compared to the conversations of us getting drunk and using the bag from a box of wine as a pillow, and the crazy shit that we did the night prior, this is so much of a better conversation.
I know.
So much
and
happens.
I could actually, it's so fun to think like where we would end up, and all the people from that time in our lives. It's so fun to think about.
Can I actually, before we go into the abundance thing, I forget.
Yeah.
I forget her name.
Zyda.
Yes.
Yes, I feel Zyda, and I love her. She's amazing. Yeah, we caught up last time. She actually lives in London now. Of course, now that I'm on the other side of the world, she lives in London. And I was in London last April, so we were hanging out quite a lot then, and we had a lot of fun. And we sometimes take trips together to Thailand and other places, so that's a lot of fun as well. Yeah.
Yeah, she was.
We have a really great friendship soon.
Yeah. You two were inseparable.
Yeah. It's true.
Has she? Yeah. Has she done any of this work with you? Have you incorporated her into these masturbation circles? Have you incorporated her in like any of this stuff? Has she gone on her own journey?
The one thing that she has done with me is that she has got a yoni egg. So that was because I had such a short time with her when I was in London. So she got a yoni egg from me, and this is the kind of sexual practices that she's doing at the moment, and like talking to me about that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, the masturbation circles are all in Australia. So she hasn't been able to come to attend to any of those yet.
Oh, okay.
Which is a shame. Yeah.
Sometime in the future.
It's really good. Yeah, I hope she is hoping to come back over this way. So it's a plan for us.
Tell her to, because I don't have her on Facebook. I have I completely lost touch with her. Well, I mean, I lost touch with
Oh,
you
okay.
as well, right? And then
Yeah.
we reconnected. I'm like, how the fuck did we end up in a very similar like path? I don't understand this. This is kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
It is funny.
But yeah, I completely lost touch with her. Tell her to make a
Mm.
trip through Vancouver and then fly from Vancouver
Okay.
down to Australia, or like
Okay.
I don't know, send her name to me on Facebook or whatever, and I'll reach
Yeah.
out to her. I'd love to connect
Yeah.
and catch up with her.
Mm. Yeah. Well, if you know any women that want to that have a space where and have a like an erotic community in Vancouver, I would love to come over and run a masturbation circle.
Oh my
A
God.
mixed one as well. I would do a mixed one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk offline about that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
So I'm like when you're talking about bringing in more abundance, because you were talking about using these masturbation
Yes.
circles as a way to bring in more abundance. I'm like I know that you're referring to sex magic, but let's and I've done an episode on sex magic. I've done a couple of episodes that are oriented around sex and money, sex and business, and then one episode directly on sex magic. How is it? And each person, it's the message tends to be the same, but you know, sometimes I hear a message being conveyed from one person, it just doesn't resonate, and then I'll hear the same lesson or the same story being told by someone else, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get it. That sounds awesome. I want to learn more. So how is it that explain how these masturbation circles are supposed to bring in more abundance into your life, and how have you noticed that in your life?
So, well, there's a lot of different things for this for me. One, I do my masturbation circles around the full moon. So the potency of that energy is quite intense. The secondly is that I'm doing it in a group full of women who are all clearing out all the bullshit from their lives. So actually, collectively, they transform all the bullshit up and out of them, and it goes back into the cosmos. And then they're like a clear channel to receive abundance. And
that's the
thirdly,
hippiest statement I think I've ever heard you say.
Sometimes I go woo woo, but it's pretty earthly what I think I'm doing. It just makes a lot of sense to me, and I really don't think I'm that. It's really funny. Obviously, I call myself a witch, and I say a lot of woo woo things, but it doesn't feel woo woo to me. I'm just so fully in it. And then there's the ritual part of this as well. So like one of the things I do, I'm pretty sure you're aware of the big draw, right?
Yeah.
So the big draw, for the people that are your listeners that are watching, is like a breathing technique where you breathe in and out of your mouth. You like kind of spread the sexual energy from like the genitals, because what happens when we have an orgasm is that all the sexual energy is like stored in the pelvis, and what the big draw does is help it circulate around the body. So it's just like a breathing technique, breathing in and out of the mouth and then holding the breath, squeezing all the energy in and then releasing. And when we release, if we can move the sexual energy around, then it actually releases. It's like birthing. So I use this way of like birthing my ideas. So as a woman, obviously our yoni is our life, like it's like where life comes out of. So when we do the big draw, I often create ritual around this. Like I was telling you about, I had a fire in the middle of this circle, one of the first circles I did. So I had women write down one piece of paper, that something that they wanted to release and something they wanted to attract into their life, and something for the bigger picture, like really where they're going in their life. And they would masturbate, and then I would talk them through the big draw. They'd do the breathing technique, and then when they'd hold they'd hold this piece of paper, one of the pieces of paper in their hand, they'd squeeze all their energy in, and then they'd throw one piece of paper into the fire and release that emotion, that intention back into the universe, and then release, and then they're feeling the orgasm. And so they're actually birthing the idea as well as releasing it back into the universe through the fire, which is an element of the universe. So like, okay, I'm getting a bit woo-woo on you now, but this is all really works, and this is what people need to do.
I've done things like that. I've done that. I have done that. Yes, on a couple of on numerous occasions.
Awesome.
I know the ritual, and it's so powerful. There's even sort of a catharsis that you get from letting go. Like when you light something on fire, and there's this buildup of energy, and then you watch it and you burn it away and you say goodbye to it. It's like, oh my God, that feels so much better. I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure that you're aware of the myth of the phoenix as well, right? Mm-hmm. So the myth of the phoenix is the phoenix rises from the ashes. And the phoenix represents new birth, new beginnings, new opportunities. But in order for the phoenix to rise, there needs to be death. Something needs to burn down. There needs to be an ending of something. So in some of the things that I've done, I've represented phases of my life, and I've seen those phases or those beliefs or those thoughts, and I've sent them to ashes. I've created something like a piece of paper. When I shaved my beard, I took a video of it and I shaved my beard, and I was literally saying goodbye to certain things that was associated with it. And it's when you burn that away and you basically let that part of you die. You let that phase of your life die, even if you don't want to say goodbye to it. Like I said goodbye to these aspects of my life as a way of just letting it die. And then from that death is the ashes, and then from the ashes rises the phoenix, which gives birth to so many other opportunities that have come into my life as a result of these things that, had I not let them go, I wouldn't have met some of the people that I've met. I wouldn't have had some of the opportunities and some of the experience that I've had. So I can completely relate to it.
I'm just smiling because it's like the army captain is now so woo-woo and hippie. I love it.
Oh my God, yeah. If I had seen a video of me now back then, if I had seen a video of me now, I'd be like, what the hell happened? What the hell is going on? I need to go to the Rippers. Let's go to the strippers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go get shittered. Let's go pick up chicks. Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, God.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, the abundance thing comes into so many practices that you don't even realize. You said something in there that really caught my attention, which was about how you're letting go of, like you're clearing things out of the way, and then that lets the abundance come through. So actually, really, that's what I do in all of my rituals, because when all these women are like expressing their emotions and allowing all their pain to come up, and it actually disperses, then they actually allow for this like channel to come through to them. They're more aligned. When you're in alignment, then you can receive more abundance.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done. I'm good.
There's I think it's a Zen proverb, or I think it's an allegory. An allegory is a short story with a meaning to it, with the purpose. I think that's what an allegory is. I'm gonna say yes, and if I'm right, then I'm smart. If not, then okay, then I'm a dummy. Okay, I need to go back to school. So there's this Zen allegory, I think. Fuck, I don't know. And basically, it's a student of the Zen master, the Zen teacher, was pushing back all the time, and then one day the student said, "Can you fill up my cup of water?" And so the Zen teacher came over, and he was filling up the cup of water, and then it basically started overflowing until the student said, "Master, you can stop now. You can stop. My cup is full." And he said, "You're right. It is full. How can I fill up your cup if it's already full?" And he was basically the idea that the student was always fighting back because the student always knew best. So how could the Zen teacher teach him anything if he already knew everything?
Yeah.
So there's a purpose. There's a process of unlearning and emptying out our cup so that we can fill back in, which is exactly what you were just saying. So I just had that visual.
Definitely, and that's a constant process, I believe, because it's like we're constantly, like, energy is changing all the time, and like even our the yoni is just different every day. Like every day it's different in there. Like I could do a yoni massage on one day on a woman, and it will be like completely like clear and there's nothing going on, and then nothing will happen. She'll just go to bed that night and come up the next day and do it the same day, and like there'll be darkness in there. There'll be this stuff that needs transforming, like, and vice versa. Like it just doesn't. It's changing all the time. Things get stored on cellular memory, and someday, and like the universe, I believe, like allows us to tap into certain things at different times. This is kind of leads me back to monogamy, because monogamy really is about. It's kind of like, I always say, it's like my gold. It's like it's like a torch on the path for me. It's always shining light on what I need to do to clear out to get further towards where I need to be. Does that make sense? So it's just like when it's like me noticing that like that woman that Danny started dating, who was really beautiful, she didn't just come along and then I was like, oh, I'm a victim of all this stuff now with other women's stuff, right? That's not how it happened. That other women's stuff was already inside of me, and the universe decided that I was ready to deal with it on that day. And that's how it came about. And that's how I ended up being, having to deal with that stuff. And then it led into a whole bunch of other things that was shining the light on things I needed to deal with to become more myself. So for instance, public speaking, up until the beginning. Yeah, I know, right? So like beginning of this month, I would never go on the camera. Like I would not be, I would refuse to go on camera. I would refuse to go onto, I wouldn't go on Facebook Live. I wouldn't do any movies. I would never have done this podcast because I would have been like worrying about the way I look and whether I look natural on camera and all that kind of stuff, because I had a big aversion to it. And
you look natural, your pug doesn't. sorry, go ahead. You wouldn't have felt natural on camera or whatever.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have felt natural on camera, but because I dealt with that stuff with her and about my own beauty, and it made me come to terms with my own beauty and what I just perceive as beauty, I was actually able to become more embodied, stop being so much in my head. Because when I was in my head, I actually looked really unattractive on the camera. I did some videos quite early on, and I was like, just had all these weird faces. I was pulling all these strange faces, and the thumbnails of these videos were just hilarious because I was just like, all this energy was caught up in my face, basically. And now I've become more embodied. I'm so much more comfortable on the camera, and I'm more like comfortable with my beauty, which means I've been able to get my message out there more. So you can see how her coming along has actually helped me with my vision of where I need to be doing and help me in my revolution for my purpose on this planet.
Because you had the courage to look into your darkness and actually do that work, right?
Exactly.
Rather than believing that she was a bitch and finding all the little things that she would do that would prove to you that she was a bitch.
Exactly.
The confirmation bias.
You got it.
I just paused because of his snoring. Yeah. God. Okay. Well, you know what? I mean, I think you and I could geek out on this for forever. And pardon me. I think I've got so much to learn. Man, I've been doing this for years now, and it's just. And I run in, and then I talk to other people, and I talk to someone like you, and it's like, oh God, I got so much more to learn, so much more to do. And it's funny too, because when I first started this, I felt very confident with what it is that I knew, and a lot of what it was that I was providing my students when I was running workshops. And then the more I started to do it, the more I actually my confidence shifted, and it actually my confidence went down because I started learning so much more. And then the more I learned, the more I realized, oh, there's so much more I have to learn. So my confidence actually went down, and then it started to go. Then it's really started to go back up again. But there was definitely a point when I was like, man, I know a lot, but I know so little. And I think that's sort of a phase. I think that's when real learning really kicks in too. I mean, you learn and you reach a certain level when you're like, oh God, I've got so much to learn. Jesus. Like some people spend literally their lives learning this stuff. So I've got a lifetime to learn. Yeah.
Same.
What's one thing? Yeah, what's one last thing that you think that you'd like to leave the listeners? Because it's been a little over an hour now, so we'll start to wrap it up.
Yeah, I really just want to leave people with the ability to write their own script in their relationships, and to truly connect to themselves. They really should honor everything that's inside of themselves, even the darkest parts of their shadow. So I'm talking like the predator energies, the crazy bitch energies, all of these energies that we are told as ugly and we see as unconscious. Like, no matter how bad it is, I really believe that we can bring it into the consciousness. And I really believe that one of my reasons why I'm here is to help people bring whatever their darkness is. Like, I don't have any fear of anything anyone can say to me. Like I have like a lot of women and a lot of people in general actually are really scared of men's sexualities, especially because they can be so, I don't know, a lot of people use the word rapist energies that come up inside of them. You know, a lot of people are scared of that rapist energy inside of them. That's actually when people get raped. And what I feel like I want to do is actually, and I really want to hold space for those men that don't ever tell anybody that they feel like they have these urges to rape women. You know, I hold space for those type of men because I'm not scared of them, and I can hold that energy. I can hold that darkness because it's inside of everybody, and just some people are more comfortable with it than others.
Well, God, you know what? I thought I was going to end this right there, but I mean, God, there's if when we don't handle that darkness or that anger or those darker urges and we don't talk about it, they unconsciously drive us, and they will manifest. They will come. That energy wants to come out, and it is going to make its way out, and it's going to be fucking destructive. But if you can really,
it's leaky.
Yeah, it's leaky, and that's when people get raped or assaulted, you know, or manipulated, or just anything, like all of that, you know, all of it, or beat up, you know, or assaulting kids, you know, or abusing kids. It's just when you can, and a lot of people are scared of having those conversations around those darker sexual urges or those darker conversations.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a fantastic book that's called the Erotic Mind by Jack Morin.
Oh yes.
Oh, you know it? Oh yeah.
I know it well. Yeah,
it's
love that book. It's amazing.
Oh God, it's incredible. Yeah. And he talks about the four cornerstones of eroticism, I believe I believe it's the four cornerstones of eroticism. And if we can understand where those sexual urges are coming from, then we can work with people to help them find a healthy outlet. Rather than just saying, no, that's wrong, that's dark, that's terrible, you're evil, you're a rapist, or you're an evil bitch who's fucking with your kids' minds. If we can really tap into what's actually going on and what people are trying to get out of it, then we can find healthy outlets. We just got to talk about the scary shit, you know?
Yeah, this is why I want a new word for BDSM, because when I say the word BDSM to you, you're like, oh, cool, she's into flogging and all this other stuff, right? I'm not into that stuff. Like, that does not turn me on. What turns me on is delving into people's shadows and getting integrated into the light. So, like, I went for a really big stage in my life of really being sick of love and light, hence the yoga teaching part of my life. I was like, this is just not for me. I am not love and light, and I just can't be like that all the time. I don't want to throw compassion on stuff when I'm pissed off. You know, it's not me. And I have been working on creating containers for people to go into that stuff. And that's like part of what I've been doing for men. And this is why I want to work with people that have that kind of stuff, because it's about the sadistic stuff inside of us, you know, people that want to inflict pain and want to receive pain, you know, it's all the same thing. And people are so scared of it. Even I was scared of that part of me for a long time. But now I've integrated it. I'm actually more of a whole being, and no one's actually scared of that part of me, and I don't have to hide it. And actually that creates abundance as well, because now when I'm in a social situation, I'm not hiding that part of myself. I'll tell you on this camera that there is sadistic parts of me, you know, and I'm comfortable with them, and I'm not hiding them anymore. And that's the part of BDSM that interests me, is this pleasure pain, this erotic mind, where all these ideas and this taboo energy comes from, right? That's what I'm interested in. I don't care about flogging and whipping people and doing things like that. It doesn't interest me. What I'm interested in is where it's all coming from, and how we can transform the sadistic parts of ourselves and find a healthy container for people to process that stuff.
Oh God, I just had an orgasm. I swear to God. Yes, that is God, yes. That's actually why that's everything that you just said is exactly why I changed the show from Modern Sex Talks to the Intimate Lifestyle, because in my mind, the Intimate Lifestyle incorporates all that darker shit that people are scared about talking about, or scared of talking about. But it's all that stuff that is going to make our lives that much happier. We're going to become a lot safer people. We're going to become just more compassionate. I mean, even though you said you don't want to throw compassion on it, I mean, we actually experience more compassion when we tap into that darkness, because we can recognize the dirty, sadistic, evil aspects of ourselves, and then we can recognize it in others and understand what we need to do to find a healthy outlet for it. And it's just, so that's why
I'm all for
sorry.
I am all for compassion.
Yeah.
But I'm not for shutting down emotions. If I'm pissed off, I don't like it when someone says, oh yeah, but this is what it's like, and this is how everything works in the world, and love and light, love and light, love and light. I'm like, no, right now in the present moment, I'm going to be pissed off about it, and I'm going to express that emotion, and then I'm going to let it travel through me, because that's when the real compassion comes up inside of my heart. If I just go, oh, you know what, you're right, I shouldn't think like that, I shouldn't be like that, and I just shut it down, all that's going to happen is it's going to start leaking up. It's going to leak up, and it's going to get ugly, and then it's going to get destructive, and then I'm going to be hating on that woman that wants to date my partner, and all this stuff. It's all interlinked. Yes. God. This is so awesome. I'm so happy to have reconnected with you. Me too. This has been really beautiful. Yeah. Really enjoy this. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'd like to stick around and chat a little bit more about that. The circle jerk, as we let's call it that. I love it. Conscious circle jerk, the CCJ. Okay, cool. Cool. All right, awesome. Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot, Vicky. Oh, how can people find you? Cool. www.tantricwitch.com, Instagram tantric.witch, or Facebook Victoria Smith Tantric Witch. Awesome. Beautiful. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been really fun. Thanks for coming on.